that's masquerading as a bank branch. So you've got to do any cash deposits through the ATM, and that has a daily limit of $2,500. So if you want to make more than a cash deposit of $2,500 at the ANZ, you have to travel to a bank with a teller. So I had to go 4 suburbs away to do that, and I'm lucky that I can do that in a city. A lot of people in regional areas don't have that luxury. And then I was able to put my cash into my bank account. Riddle me that. What are some of the other frustrations you've experienced with the banks? 131873 is the open line number, 0460 873 873 to text, or you can email moneynews@9.com.au. And look, I know the vast majority of us do bank online, but it should not be as hard as it is to conduct basic everyday transactions in the real world. Let me know your thoughts and other examples you might have of businesses that are putting profits over service. And what are some of the lessons that you have that you might want to spruik to these businesses? Watch out, there could be dangers ahead. 131873. Now the markets were in a bit of a holding pattern today. The ASX 200 closed just 10 points or 0.1% higher to 8,221. The dollar's downward slide continues. It's now buying 66 US cents. I'll run through all the numbers in the market wrap for you shortly. Also tonight, the shocking number of young people prepared to go into debt to travel now and pay later, and how it can be avoided by learning the basic skill of saving. I'll speak to CommBank's personal finance expert Jess Irvine. She'll be joining us in the next half hour or so. And who were the economic winners and losers in the annual State of the States report? All of that ahead here on Money News on this Monday. But first to the book that Qantas was dreading and now the Prime Minister is wishing never made it to print. Joe Aston is the former Australian Financial Review journalist who has continued his forensic examination of the inner workings of the airline in his much anticipated first novel, The Chairman's Lounge, the inside story of how Qantas sold us out. Very brutal title for his book, that's for sure. And look, in his sights is not just the now disgraced former CEO Alan Joyce, but also the airline's board and politicians like Anthony Albanese, who the book claims personally solicited free flight upgrades worth tens of thousands of dollars and accepted membership to the airline's exclusive Chairman's Lounge, which is something all politicians are guilty of. But this was while he was Federal Transport Minister, making key decisions benefiting Qantas and blocking greater competition in our skies from Qatar Airways. The Prime Minister, though, is adamant that he's done nothing wrong.
From time to time, members of Parliament receive upgrades. What's important is that they are declared. All of mine have been declared.
But in aviation parlance, is that a defence that really flies? Well, Joe Aston joins me now. Joe, welcome to Money News. Congrats on the book. It's a ripper read.
Thank you, Deb. I appreciate that.
I tell you what, though, Qantas execs, I think they would have been breathing a sigh of relief when you announced you were hanging up your rear window hat and leaving the AFR, but now you're focused laser-like on the airline in your book, scathing of the performance under CEO Alan Joyce. What did the flying kangaroo ever do to you, Joe?
Oh, well, I think you need to ask more accurately, what did the flying kangaroo do to the Australian people? And that's a long answer. No, it's not all bad, in fairness. I go in the book, I do explain the many good things that Alan Joyce did, but I think it's pretty difficult to deny that things went off, the wheels fell off when COVID hit, and I think Qantas, I think they saw an opportunity to increase their profit to such an enormous extent by cutting costs so savagely that they forgot that, being the national carrier means that in a national crisis, there are responsibilities that you're expected to meet. And that unfortunately fell by the wayside, and the rest is sort of history.
So putting profits before customers, chasing short-term success over long-term growth.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And I would say, when in 2019, when just before COVID hit, I think Alan Joyce was extremely well regarded. Shareholders loved him for the profits he was delivering. staff were very, very happy at Qantas, despite how the company had become more efficient, and customers were very, very happy.
Well, he was a corporate hero, wasn't he? And even the chairman, Richard Goyder, described him as the best CEO by the length of a straight in the country.
Well, if he'd said that in 2019, people probably would have nodded, begrudgingly. But unfortunately for Richard Goyder, he said that in 2022, and by that time, nobody thought that was true. He was actually the most loathed CEO in Australia by that point, and the Qantas board seemed to be the very last to figure that out.
So did the weak leadership of Richard Goyder and the whole Qantas board just enable Alan Joyce?
Yes, that's exactly what it did. In some ways, that makes them more liable over this whole thing than Joyce himself, because Alan Joyce was doing what he did with the full understanding of the Qantas board, the Qantas board it was their job to manage him and to give him feedback. And despite